Welcome everyone to another live edition of Let's Talk America Radio. I am Shana Thornton, on-air host and executive producer. And of course, it is Sunday night. And of course, we highlight the real topics for real people with the real experts and advocates that know it best. And tonight's topic is one that's serious, but one that hopefully will inspire you, especially the discussion portion of this topic. And I'm talking about preventing child abuse in 2021. And I have three amazing individuals on with me that have really dedicated a great portion of their life and careers and passions and extracurricular time in terms of trying to stomp out this very serious issue that impacts all communities. If you think you know what child abuse looks like, you're probably wrong, right? So it's not a certain socioeconomic status. It's not maybe someone that lives in this part of the country or a certain neighborhood. You're certainly wrong. And these three women are going to make their point tonight. And let's introduce these amazing women with us. I happen to know them personally as well, and what they do for the community at large truly motivates and inspires. And tonight they're going to educate us here on Let's Talk America Radio. Before we get started, I would like to encourage you to kindly share this live episode of Let's Talk America Radio, or simply watch it on demand, tag someone, because information is key and we never know where we may need information like this. Okay, family, friends, new mothers, new fathers, babysitters, those who work in daycare facilities. You just never know. Information is so important, like with anything that comes up. First, let's meet the one and only Robin Jones. Robin is the executive director for Prevent Child Abuse Henry. She has a degree in child and family development and has been with Prevent Child Abuse Henry since 1997. And she loves working with the volunteers to help children with families everywhere. Robin, welcome to the program. We're going to talk with you more very soon. We also have with us D'Amico Edwards. D'Amico is the current president of Child Abuse, Prevent Child Abuse Henry. She brings years of experience in the legal field as a paralegal, and she has a lot of experience in other organizations as well. And she's going to talk about that experience and really her passion and advocacy that drives what she does today in terms of putting out the message of preventing child abuse. And last and certainly not least, we have the one and only Antoinette Paragon Singh with us. And Antoinette is the Parenting Matters Program Coordinator. And she began as a First Steps intern in 2012 and has been actively involved in various roles since then with Child Abuse Henry, Prevent Child Abuse Henry. Ladies, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Shana. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Shana.
Oh, thank you for being on with us. Robin, you've been with this organization since 1997. That's been a while now. Before we start the conversation about preventing child abuse, talk with us about your organization and really the mission and what your vision, what you hope to achieve, and probably I would imagine what you've already achieved in being with this organization for over 20 years.
Yes, I have been with them for a long time, and it's been a great journey. I love where we've come from and where we've gotten to. So we actually, our mission is to prevent child abuse and neglect in all forms, and our goals are to promote child abuse prevention programs in Henry County and to stimulate public awareness about child abuse prevention. We started out with 0 programs. We began this First Steps program in 1997. It's grown tremendously. We've been able to add a program that I'm sure we're going to talk about later. And so we've really are just trying to get the word out there, let people know what's going on, how they can prevent child abuse, and just make Henry County a better and safer community for families and children.
I mean, that's so important when you talk about the safety of it and the advocacy and the different programs and initiatives. And we thank you for that. I want to start off with a question that may seem obvious to the three of you, but not so obvious to someone watching. Maybe they're a novice at parenting. Maybe they're not necessarily a novice at it, but they've perhaps grew up in a family structure where it really wasn't talked about much. Maybe they didn't see it impacting them, but define for us, Robin, in layman's terms as much as possible, what exactly is child abuse? And I know for you, you're like, well, that may be an obvious question, but for many, it's not, because I think there are different interpretations of what child abuse is for some people. Perhaps it depends on the generation they belong to. Maybe it depends on the cultural background they're from. But from a legal standpoint of what you know, leading this organization and really what law enforcement would say, what is child abuse?
So, Shana, there are actually several different types of child abuse. Physical abuse, the definition of that would be a non-accidental physical injury to a child. So that's really simple, and it's a broad definition, but that is the definition for physical abuse. Sexual abuse is any sexual act with a child by an adult or an older child, and that can be either with or without force, either way. So that's sexual abuse. Emotional abuse is a little more complicated, so I'm going to actually read that so that I make sure I'm legally correct. So emotional abuse is characterized by a person subjecting or exposing another person to behavior that results in psychological trauma, anxiety, chronic depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder. And then we also have neglect. Neglect is actually the leading form of child abuse in the United States. And that is just simply when a caretaker fails to provide basic needs for a child. And that includes, food, clothing, shelter, even education, adequate supervision, or adequate medical care.
So interesting that neglect, you're saying, is the most common form of abuse of children here in the United States. And I would imagine, so when we hear stories on the news of people perhaps leaving their children in cars as they're going inside to work, you're saying that that's a legal definition of neglect here in the United States.
That could be, yes, that is one part of neglect. Neglect covers a lot of different things. Like I was saying, it's just when basic needs are not met. But yes, leaving a child in a hot car unsupervised.
Yeah,
Definitely be neglect.
Thank you so much. I do want to jump on one thing before we move on. You said emotional abuse is a little more complicated, and you named several things there. You said post-traumatic stress, things where someone is perhaps being tortured mentally, emotionally. From your standpoint, would that be something that the parent or guardian or the adult or in a supervising position, be it a teacher, whoever, would they need to be conscious that they're causing that distress on that child, or not necessarily?
I would say not necessarily. It's not necessarily a conscious thing, but anytime that they're causing those types of issues with a child is definitely a type of emotional abuse.
Wow, thank you so much. Antoinette, you were with us this evening, and Robin shared a lot with us that's already eye-opening and very educational for all of us to be aware of. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, as a responsible community member, I need to be aware of this. So if I'm seeing this sort of thing, it's things I can do. But I know you work with really educating new mothers, right, on what abuse looks like. How is that done? How exactly can we meet new mothers or mothers and fathers in general where they are to make them understand these are things that can be harmful for your child long term?
Okay, so as Robin mentioned, one of the programs that we have, and the main program that we started out, was called First Steps. And that's a program that's at the hospital. We talk to the moms, and if dads are present, we talk to them there. But that's just a one touch, and possibly a short follow-up call in a few months to educate them about maybe taking care of their child, taking care of themselves and stuff. So that what we call a soft touch is a one-off situation. But what we've done since 2019 is start what we call Parenting Matters. And this is a continuation of that soft touch and allowing meeting with parents. Right now I have mostly moms, but I have had a few cases where I have had a dad involved in the sessions. So we meet them at their home at that time before COVID and talk to them about a variety of things regarding parenting, um, regarding communication, and just a lot of the things of making them aware of how their behavior patterns that they may have had during their own childhood, how it affected them. I think because it's important for them to recognize how it affected them and how it continues to affect them as they are adults and becoming parents, and seeing if we can recognize them to make a change, make a shift in their behavior, in their thought patterns. So what we consider to be neglect or emotional abuse, physical abuse is probably not so much easier to see, but definitely having them recognize that slapping a child or hitting the child in the back of the head, that is not something that they should be doing. But because of generations of doing this, and it's okay, and this is the way it is done. So it's really educating them. So that's what our parenting program is about. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things that we do as we go on through the program.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you make a very valid point. D'Amico, she said that physical abuse for some people may vary. Now, Robin painted a very good picture of what the law says is physical abuse, but I think Antoinette is addressing the elephant in the room. There are many families of different ethnicity groups, different cultures that grew up doing some of the things Antoinette described, right? Slapping a child in the mouth if people would say got sassy with them, if they were disrespecting them, they would use physical force. And as president of this organization, as someone who spent years in the legal field and you still work there advocating for causes very important to you, how exactly do you reach someone who is simply saying, sitting in front of Antoinette, you're saying slapping and knocking my kid in the head is wrong, but my mom did it to me and it got me on the right track and it kept me out of prison. How do you address that when you're talking to real people? Because, not everything is sitting in a research book. They're saying these are life skills and this happened to me and it turned me the right way.
It's a difficult challenge. It's a challenge. It's difficult to do that because, as Antoinette and Robin both said, it's generational. It's what people believe, that if I smack my child around, or if I smack them in the mouth because they were being disrespectful, or then that's just what it's going to be. For me as a CASA, it's education. It's teaching better. You have to want to know better to do better. It's teaching individuals to break the generational curse. It's just working with individuals and really getting them to understand that, yes, you can spank your child, but that there's a great difference between spanking your child and beating your child or causing emotional or physical harm to that child.
Such a great point. You're thinking of a harm long-term and in that moment. You did mention CASA. Can you explain to our viewing audience what exactly does the acronym stand for, and how does that enable you to be a spokesperson or advocate, if you will, for children?
Hold on one second. Oh, thank you. I am a CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. I have been a court-appointed special advocate and a guardian ad litem in Clayton County for over 10 years. I've worked in both probate court, which is for elderly or just different cases, and also I currently work in volunteer in Clayton County Juvenile Court. What a CASA actually does is we're a volunteer. We are appointed by someone, what they normally would call a judicial officer, which is someone within the court system. We're trained, we're taught, we go through all kinds of courses. We do continuations, we do continued education, and we're pretty much, the simplest way to put it, we're the best interest of the child. That is our main focus. That is our main goal. Whatever is going to be in the best interest of that child for the rest of his or her life, to get that case settled.
Thank you for explaining that. And I think it's important for us to understand exactly what the advocacy that you're doing achieves. It's in the best interest of the child. And I say that because when you think of journalism, you think of getting all the information. We're not talking what's the best interest for the mom or the dad, right? Which is that's a different case.
There is definitely a difference.
Right? Because there are people, when you think of even custody, or someone lost custody due to neglect, which, as Robin pointed out, is the most common form of child abuse here in the United States. You're saying that the mother may want to prove to family members, oh, I'm back on track. But there are times, honestly speaking, where she or he, that dad, may not be what's best for that child at that time. And so you're saying focusing on what's best for that child may be difficult in the moment, right? Talk to us about that as a CASA representative, because I think many people will say, well, they're crying, they're acting out. You've got to give them back to the mom. You've got to give them back to the dad. And I have someone very close in my family that spent over 40 years as a
Mhm.
social worker, working with children from different communities and different families. And one of the first things they'll always say when they're talking about the work of social work, that there were cases where mom or dad or whoever greatly harmed and physically abused this child, or even sexual abused this child in some cases.
Mhm.
And the child would ask hours later for that mom or that father or for that adult. And so I think for layman people who don't have the training you have, right, will say, well, they want to be with their mom, but you're saying the best interest of that child may not be back with that parent just to keep the family structure together. We're talking deeper long term. So this kid may be a productive adult, okay, 20 years from now, right?
Yes, yes. So as a CASA, we're what's considered to be the eyes and the ears of the judge. We're sent in to investigate the home, and that child will already have his or her own attorney. The mom and dad will have his or her own attorney. So in no way are we attorneys. But we go in and we investigate the home. We talk to the families. We talk to the medical providers. We talk to the child's schools. And we talk to the child. If the child is old enough, we talk to the child to find out, we dig deep to find out what the child is really thinking, what the parents are doing. A lot of times there have been cases where our ultimate goal is always reunification. That's just the ultimate goal. We try to work with the parents, or we work with DFACS. We make sure the parents follow the DFACS case plans, everything that's put in line. But there have just been some times where, unfortunately, it's a very difficult decision for the judges, I'm sure, is that best interest of the child is not the family. It might be another family member, an aunt, a grandmother, a grandfather, an uncle. But it's difficult not to have to be the ones to say, hey, we've investigated it. My recommendation is that this just isn't the best interest for the child. And it just may be a case where mom isn't maybe following the case plan that DFACS gave them, or dad they're not following what the rules are.
Such great information. Thank you. Knowledge is power. Applied information is even more powerful. You're watching Let's Talk America Radio on this Sunday evening. We are putting the spotlight on preventing child abuse and have an amazing virtual panel with us that's breaking it all down and also talking about the advocacy and the resources that are available. We're talking with three amazing individuals with Prevent Child Abuse Henry. So excited and grateful to have them on. Robin, I know your program and other programs similar throughout the United States, because we do have a national viewing audience, really work towards the solution and healing in so many ways. Talk to us about the Stewards of Children's child sexual abuse training that takes place. How exactly does that work?
So there is a Darkness to Light Stewards of Children child sexual abuse training. We actually have two trained facilitators on our board, myself and one other board member, Laquel Maxwell, that can provide this training to the community. We kind of do it on an as needed basis, but it is like it says, it's a very direct child sexual abuse prevention training. It teaches parents and other adults and caretakers of children how to protect children, how to recognize abuse, and how to protect themselves as caretakers of children sometimes, like maybe a Sunday school class or a coach and things like that. And how to react responsibly. So if a child does disclose to you, how to report that, how to talk to the child, and the best way to handle that.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, because there are certainly situations where that is needed. And it's so key that when we talk about children and the healing, also the adults that are involved, right? To really get that information out so people are applying it well. Antoinette, I know the organization Prevent Child Abuse Henry has several initiatives that it works with. You touched on some before, but the Parenting Matters Home Visitation Program. I don't want to miss the boat, the obvious for you, but is that going into the homes and observing? Talk more about that.
Okay, so basically this is, it's a visitation program. Like you said, before COVID, I would go into the homes and moms, dads, or even grandparents who agree to this free program that we're offering. We started it back in 2019. It's really an evidence-based program that I present to them to support the family in being a family, being new parents. It's providing increased parenting knowledge and skills. It's a tool to reduce the risk and attitudes that are seen in our society that help towards neglect and abuse. So it's letting them be aware. So how we do it is that we usually, a lot of the cases that I've had it, or a lot of the families that I've had are first steps family. In other words, they've had a baby at Piedmont Henry, and Robin has seen them and they have agreed and say, yes, I want to know how to be a better parent. I want to know how to be able to know what to expect from my newborn, my 1-month-old, my 2-month-old. So what we do is once I get them to agree, I go in and tell them what the program is about, and they do a pre-test just to get an idea of where they are in certain thoughts based on our program. And I go in I speak to them once a week and talk to them about their beliefs, cultural beliefs, talk to them about their spiritual beliefs, not necessarily about religion, because that's not all there is to our spirituality. So just talking to them and giving them some thoughts. I talk to them about, what to expect, like I said, from their newborns and their 1-month-old, if they're first-time parents, or maybe they're not first-time parents. I'm going like, it's been so long since I've had my other child, and things have changed so much. What are some of the things that I can expect? So we take care of families. I can start them as early as their 3rd trimester. And I can take them and we can have them if they have children 0 to 5 years old. It's a completely free program. They are given a workbook. I work the workbook through them. And the sessions are about, now that we're doing COVID, I do it via Zoom. And it's about 40 minutes that we do a discussion and go through the different programs. I am very much a believer of listening to people. So I listen to what their needs are and cater the program. The program is very flexible and cater to their needs and see it is what is it that and I share a lot of my own personal experiences with them. I'm a mother of 3 grown children and a grandmother. So I share my own personal experiences. And so that lets them know that I've been there with you. I know what you're going through, maybe a long time ago, but I'm still there. And just give them how to praise their children if something is not going their way, or if they're not agreeing with their child, how to communicate, how to have ownership of their own feelings to communicate with their partners. So there are just so many areas that we're going through, and it's about a 12-week program. Sometimes it gets longer because based on the needs of the family, I may not do the lesson plan that I had for that day because something may have come up and we just need to discuss something. But usually the course is about, classes are about 12 weeks. 12 weeks. And like I said, it's a free program to anybody who is in Henry County that is in their 3rd trimester of pregnancy, or if they have a child 0 to 5 years old.
Thank you so much. What a great resource that's available. D'Amico, but I want to ask you a real question because it's real talk and we are highlighting and spotlighting preventing child abuse in 2021. There's a stigma that exists in all communities, right? On so many different levels. But when it comes to saying you need help with how to raise your kid, there are certain families and certain community members that sort of frown upon that, right? Because by the time you conceive this beautiful child, you're supposed to be the expert and you don't need to necessarily ask a stranger like Antoinette for Robin info, right? You can ask your aunt, you can ask your grandmother. They already know because they raised you and many, many others. Talk to us about transparency and being able to really evaluate where we are, to say, you know what, I do love what mom and dad did for me. I do have a great Gigi. She was amazing. But I'm more interested in perhaps another way, being educated on another way of doing this, right? Because you know this, there are many, many mothers and aunts and godmothers out there that have heard family members critique what a pediatrician is saying. The pediatrician will say one thing, even something very serious about a child's sleeping position to prevent SIDS. And I have heard friends, family members rebuke that, right? Oh, that pediatrician doesn't know what she's talking about. I've raised such and such many kids. This is what they should do. They should be having this sort of calorie diet and give them grits and cereal at 2 weeks because I gave it to you and you were healthy. Talk to us about really seeking or having the discipline to seek the right information when it comes to raising our kids, because I happen to believe it's the most precious journey we are given.
It is definitely the most precious journey. And I am a true believer that it is something that you have to want to do. There's no in between the path that you've started, meaning I'm just going to stick to what grandma, my mom, and auntie told me, or I'm going to use what they told me, but I'm going to also educate myself just a tad bit more. And I'm going to reach out and accept the resources that I'm given or the resources that are available. And it's across the entire community. It's not just one particular community. Every community, every different racial background group, we all have different ways to raise our children. And as a mother myself, and when I was a very new mom, I was like, you can't tell me what, it's my child. I'm going to raise him or her the way I want to raise. But I had to want to do better. You have to want to be better to do better.
And I think, Shana, as well too, it's about letting them know that being a parent, you need to also recognize that this is not the only thing that you're doing in your life. Yes, it's probably the most important thing at this time, but there's also your own development. It's your own growth, your own growing up and being a better person as a parent. So you have to be a better parent to be the best parent that you can be. So improve yourself so that you can help your child to improve. And I think one of the biggest things that I've found with the parents that I've dealt with, the biggest topic that we have is about communication. What does communication look like? How do I take ownership for my own feelings, my own thoughts, and not blame it on someone else? So when a child starts to get to the stage where they're going like, because you have learned this new way of communicating, you can also pass it on to your child to deal with all of the things that our children are dealing with. Yeah. When they get to school, how do they deal with bullies? How do they come back to you? How do you recognize what they're saying? And that's also something that when you talk about darkness to light as well too, recognizing the things that are not always sitting there right in front of us. And we have to change the way we think and the way we react to be able to deal with the generation as they are now, because they are bombarded with everything from all different directions. And so bettering ourselves as individuals helps us to be better parents, to better parent the children that we're having now.
I so agree with you, Antoinette. As a mother myself, I always say, really, the journey of parenting makes me a better person. It does. And I think everyone who's a mother or father, and certainly an engaged mother and father, can acknowledge there are tough times when it comes to parenting. And I think you're so right. That's why we educate ourselves. And you have to be aware and train yourself in so many ways. And I'll go back to an example my dad would often say when you're learning to drive, right? If you're driving and something runs in the street, or something goes in the street, or there's a ball that comes in and there's not a child near it, the thing would be to swerve, right?
Mhm.
But when you've trained your mind, you become a seasoned driver, you really examine the scene and you look at what's the safest thing to do in terms to avoid that ball, or even if it's that squirrel, whatever is running in the street, to make sure you're not causing more havoc. And that's exactly what it becomes the parenting. Even when a child can have fussy nights, right? Or there's behavior that doesn't fit into the book you've been told, and your child's this precious being, and they're not acting this way, and being conscious of how you're responding to them. And you mentioned the C word more than once, communication. And it's
Yeah.
so key. And everyone says communication is the key to relationships between two people, two grown-ups, but it also helps, would you agree, Antoinette, when it comes to our children, being
Oh,
able to
definitely.
talk and explain, right? I would imagine. Help us out.
Yes, and it's really a learning process, and you do have to consider the personality of the child, because you cannot communicate with each child the same way. So you really have to, first of all, take into your own self. How is it that you are communicating? And then take into to the consideration the child and at the different stages that they go through. There are certain ages, as you probably very well know, and I think Robin and Demika also very know, those teenage years when the parents become the people who do not know anything at all. They were not here before, they don't know anything. So how can you talk to me? You were never my age. And so all of a sudden, mom and dad or don't know what they're talking about. How is it that you are going to communicate with your child? How is it that you're going to get your to be able to open up those lines of communication and let your child know that yes, I am the person. I am the person that I want you to come to me. I want you to tell me, and expressing that self. And if that child does something wrong, how do you express to that child how you feel as an individual, as a parent, as an adult? How do you feel about that? You have to take ownership of your own feelings and pass it on to them. You're not going to say to the child if they do something wrong, you're such a bad child because you spilled your milk. You know, you'd have to know it, and it's a learned process, and it doesn't happen overnight. It is a continuous learn process. And as a child goes through the different stages of life, whether you got some sassy little 5 and 6 year olds out there, and you got some other very quiet children, and then you have some teenagers that you really need to step back, take 100 deep breaths, and allow them to share with you what is going on, so that you can help them, you can guide them through what it is. And these are some of the things that we do in the parenting classes, letting them know there's a difference between how the male brain is different from the female brain. When you talk to somebody about the development of the male brain versus the female and how they react to different situations, that is also something that's very eye-opening. What to expect from your child? Do you expect a 5-year-old to be doing certain things versus a teenager? What are some of the expectations that you should of your children at the different stages of their development, whether it be infant, newborn, infant, toddler, preschool, going, and like I said, we go up to 5 years, so we usually stop at preschool, but I try to give the parents the resources, how to find the resources as their child goes along, because I'm not going to stay with them until the child is 18 years old, but I'm going to give them the resources to be able to find out, okay, how is it that I'm going? And when it comes to feeding, you talked about children being given cereal at 2 weeks old or 3 weeks old, or they may give them chocolate milk. Like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. And here is the evidence. Here is a good evidence that why you should not do it. Don't give a child honey at before they're 2 years old. Why is it that we say so? Why is it that we say children should be put on their back as newborn? Do not put them on their stomach. All of those things, and giving them, because some of the times I think our society, we're told things, just do it because I said so. There's no reasoning behind it. Yeah. But I think if we stop, take the time, educate, and let them know, okay, we don't do A because of this. We don't do B because of this. They kind of have a better understanding. Oh, well, that makes sense. It's not just, somebody, the pediatrician saying, I shouldn't put my child on the stomach for sleep. And that's just one example of some of the things that we go through.
And I will say information is key. And I think we have found even in the efforts to promote as much information as possible about the COVID-19 vaccination, right? People
Mhm.
can certainly have the choice to say yes or no, but I think I would encourage everyone to be educated on
Mhm.
the vaccine and not necessarily say yes or no because someone else you know you love and adore is saying it, but know the information and be empowered for yourself, right? Because often when you sort of question the no or yes,
Mhm.
people are not as firm as confident as they should be.
Mhm.
Often it's something that was said to them by somebody else they love. And when you start using critical thinking skills to say, well, but that may not be the best way to put that puzzle together, then they
Mhm.
start to question it, right? So I think knowledge is so, so key. Robin, I've got a question for you, and it came from our live chat. Where can someone sign up to get the Darkness to Light training? Is that open to everyone?
Yes, it is open to everyone, and as I said, we do it on an as-needed basis, so we would be happy if an individual wants to have the training, I can talk to them about that. Also, if people have church groups or sports groups or anything like that, we are certainly open and flexible about doing a training for them. The only cost is for the booklet, which is $15. So we are more than happy to do that. And yes, it's a training that's good for just individuals, parents, like I said, coaches, anyone that has anything to do with children.
Thank you. And we're going to ask you in a few minutes as we wrap up, but give the information for your organization if someone's listening and watching us right now, where they can go for that. I know you have a website or email address they can reach out to.
We do. The email address is Robin, ROBIN, at preventchildabusehc, as in Henry County.org. And our website is www.preventchildabusehc.org.
Thank you so, so much. Antoinette, I want to go back to you. And it's such a fascinating conversation when we talk about parenting and children and different personalities. We've got some feedback in our live chat saying you stated, well, we have to be open to learning better ways of parenting and not just totally follow how we were raised, because there's always opportunity for growth. And that is so, so key, right? I think there's a thin line often, I think, when you speak with community members about their childhoods, and no parent is perfect, right? Ideally, you hope this, right? That they're doing the best they can emotionally in all sort of areas, right? You hope they are. But you can have had a great mom and say, but that's not quite how I want to raise mine. And I think that needs to be said because often it's the uncomfortable conversation that's not had, right? Because I love mom, I adore dad, I admire them, I'm thankful for what they did, the opportunities, but that doesn't mean, as this person's pointing out in this live chat, there's not areas for growth. And I think you have to be willing to accept that truth. You can love, adore, admire, but also recognize that mom and dad were not perfect. We're not perfect. There's no such thing as perfect parenting. But I always say, but the goal is, right, to just have more progress and be better than what we did. And hopefully that keeps growing. But I want to talk to you about something that's real, right? And I've had conversations before with other experts, as the three of you, on child abuse. And one of the things that keeps coming up when you speak with individuals, especially psychiatrists or psychologists that have worked with people, families trying to pull themselves together, improve the situation, often a parent is reacting, or shall I say, and I'm speaking in layman's terms, Shayna's terms, not the jargon you all would use. They're reacting to anger or emotions they have somewhere else, and they're misplacing it on this child, right? And so they've maybe had a bad day at work, maybe they're having relationship problems with a significant other. It could be anything, and that outlet is not being appropriately pursued. And there's an appropriate way to do that as well. But what do people do, right? We all know the adage: people that know you and love you hurt you the most, right? They do, right? Everyone has heard that all of their life. So you have a mom or dad or grandmother or aunt, whoever's supervising this child, perhaps really mad that they owe money to someone else and that person's getting on them and they're taking it out on the child. How do you address that though? Because I mean, I would imagine, Antoinette, very few times, unless this person's just really conscious of what they're doing and trying to change and have maybe gone through some sort of therapy or some official help or like programs that you have, are they going to recognize you're really mad because your boss is underpaying you and disrespecting you on the job?
Yeah.
Yes, little Johnny did not do his homework, but did it really warrant that kind of response from you because he didn't do his homework. Let's talk about it because that's real issues for real families right now in America.
Yeah, I believe that it's a lot about self-evaluation. And that's a skill that I try to impart on them. Thinking about self-worth, your own, who you are as an individual. And this is why the program is not just for parenting. It's not just about parenting. It's about you as an individual, you as a mom, you as the dad. But finding out what is it that you consider your self-worth? What is it that you are going through, and recognizing it and being able to verbalize it in a way that does not necessarily put blame on someone else. Okay, so yes, you're having these things that are going on. How is it that we're going to give you the tools to help you to evaluate yourself? Because once you have learned those tools, those we've given you those tools and you've learned that, you can then go on and teach your child the same set of skills that you have thing. So the program, if I was really to put it in a nutshell, it's about life skills. Life skills. It's
I love it.
learning life skills
I love it.
so that you can not only improve yourself, your family, but your family in terms of maybe a one-on-one relationship, but as well as bringing in the children. When we're talking about setting family values, determining family values, routines, and all of these things, how important it is to a child's development to establish those things. Those are some of the things that we talk about. When you're talking about at this time, I mean, the focus is on the COVID and the effects of COVID. One of the things that we do is a literacy, financial literacy program. How is it that in this time, with whatever is going on, that I can still be able to have some kind of peace of mind to know that it's going to get better. Things are going to get better. And when I get to that point, I have the skills. I am ready and waiting for that job to come along, and I'm going to be at a better place than I was. I'm not saying that it's all perfect, but you would have had better skills to deal with the situation, so that when that boss is putting the pressure on you and you're going like, do I really need to keep this job or do I need to quit? You have done the evaluation yourself. You've looked at your finances and you can make a good educated decision on where you're going to be going. I hope I've answered the question, because there are just so many facets to who we are as individuals and who we are as a family, as a couple, as with children of varying ages. There's just no one answer. I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a counselor. But let me tell you, I have a program that works.
Yes.
It's an evidence-based program that has worked for over 30 years. And so, and I listen. And if I can't find the answers, I'm going to find you somebody who will be able to give you the answers, because I have the resources at my hand, at my fingertips. And if I don't have it, I'm going to find it.
I love that, because I think what's clear about your passion, the passion of Robin and D'Amico, is that we're talking about education. We're talking about improvement. And you all are not putting guilt on a parent who's seeking to be a better parent. And that's what I love about it, because I think so many times there is a stigma that's already there. Maybe it's been bred in us in terms of how we were raised, and it prevents us from getting as much information as we need. But you're saying, here's the information, have no guilt with it, and be able to move forward. D'Amico, this is a very important question right now that someone wants to hear. The question is, if someone is watching us, if they're listening to us and they're saying, okay, great information, but I'm going back to what Robin said, and she described forms of abuse of children. If someone suspects, maybe a neighbor, maybe a church family, maybe it's someone in their family, their cousin, maybe it's a grandkid, right? I mean, I know social workers up close and personal that have said they've gotten calls of reporting often from grandparents, right? Someone that's seeing the situation, they tried to approach it themselves, it was not handled, and they became concerned for the safety of that child. But what can the average person do? I don't know CASA's rules like you, CASA's rules, excuse me. I'm not in the courts. I haven't spent years in the legal feel like you. If I have a genuine concern, I'm talking about genuine concern, right? That's there. Because we obviously want people to be able to speak up, but we want people to speak up because it's real and authentic, right? What
Right.
can they do? I mean, or I mean, is there anything we can do, or it's probably best to call law enforcement and let them handle it?
It depends on your comfortability. If you're comfortable with that family, if it's a family friend, if it's a family member, and you're comfortable with having a conversation with them, then have that conversation. If the conversation starts to go to the left and it's just not going well, then you have to decide, okay, you know what? I'm gonna let it go. I've talked, but I'm still going to report it. Because at the end of the day, it's about the safety, security, and well-being of a child. And you'd rather report it and to know that someone has looked into it and it was absolutely nothing, or it was something. If you see something, say something. And I know in our generation, a lot of people are, and that's not my business. I'm not getting involved in that. It's somebody else's business. Think about the child. They're suffering and they can't say anything. They don't know who to say it to. It's if you see something, as our shirts, as our Prevent Child Abuse shirts say, if you see something, say something. If you're unsure, say something.
Wow. I mean, and you said a lot. And I think that's true that there are people who will say, well, I don't want to get law enforcement involved. I mean,
Sometimes it's time for law enforcement to be involved.
yeah. Wow. I mean, and that's a good point. I mean, if there is a sincere, which of course we're hoping is there, a sincere concern, you're going to get law enforcement involved because that's for the safety of that child. And I think it goes back to what you said
Right.
about the CASA program. It's what's in the best interest of the child, and being able ourselves to be, and we don't have the strength. We just have to let the police have the strength or someone else have the strength to say,
Right.
because some people, I don't want to get caught up. I don't want to be the reason they got taken from. But if you have a valid concern, I would imagine as a human, wouldn't you rather have said, I tried to do something instead of seeing so many of the cases we see on the news of the safety of a child?
Right. There's anonymous lines. There are lines that you can call where you can even say, just be honest, talk about it. Say, I'm calling because I believe. I've noticed some things, and they're going to call. They're going to do a welfare check. They're going to go in and be like, hey, we got a call. We just need to check in. If the law enforcement, believes that there is an issue or that there's going to be a concern, it's going to go further. If it isn't, at least you did something to check on a child or to check on an individual that very well could have possibly been abused or is being abused, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically, sexually. It's just so much going on that people just have to take the time to do it. That's if they're being sincere about it.
And I think that's so key. I mean, when you're being sincere about it, obviously it's a concern, and let those who are experts and advocates
Yeah.
look into the situation. And of course, there can be times, and I've seen this, where there was nothing, there was a concern, it was reported, but let the experts figure that out, right? Because I don't have your training, I don't have Antoinette's training, I don't have the experience of Robin with Prevent Child Abuse Henry. Let the people who know it best handle it. Robin, your program has done so much over the years. I've witnessed that up close and personal. Tell us what's going on now. I know COVID-19 has changed so much of what so many different amazing organizations like yours have been able to do, because I know I've participated in some of your great events that you've had previously. But what's going on right now? What are you all doing to get ready for April, which is Child Abuse Awareness Month?
Yes, it is Child Abuse Awareness Month. And to piggyback on that, as well as what you were talking about with making reports, I do want to let everybody know that to make a report, the state of Georgia has a hotline number that all reports go through, and it's real easy to remember. It's 1-855-GEORGIA-CHILD. So it's GA Child. That's where all the reports in the state of Georgia go through. And then they're divvied up to the individual counties. So April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We typically have a big kickoff for that event, which you know you've hosted for us many, many years. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we're not able to do that this year. Prevent Child Abuse America has asked us not to do any large gatherings. We will be doing that again next year. But we are still selling the blue and silver pinwheels that you will hopefully see planted all over the county, as well as signs. People can email us if they're interested in any of those. Also, the t-shirts that you see all three of us wearing, they indicate the theme for this year, which is growing a better tomorrow for all children together. So we're really focusing on the positive. We're focusing instead of on the adverse childhood experiences, which contribute to so many different things. We are focusing on positive childhood experiences and pouring those into children so that they will be resilient, they'll be healthy, and they'll be empowered. And just making sure that people know about these programs like Parenting Matters and First Steps, and ones that other people in our community are putting out there. Connecting Henry, Raise Me Up Foundation, just a lot of different places. We want parents to plug into these things and be the best parents that they can be. You know, a lot of times, most people want to be the best parent they can be, and they just sometimes need a helping hand, especially with COVID and that sort of thing. Also, if a parent has any issues that they're just overwhelmed and concerned about, they can call the 1-800-CHILDREN line. That's for any kind of questions or problems that they may be having concerning children. So there are just so many things out there people can take advantage of, and we just want to be able to give them these resources.
Thank you so much. I mean, and it's all about resources and assets that are out there for us. And your organization continues to lead the way, and the pinwheels have a very special, neat presence as well. Antoinette, before we wrap up, the pinwheels, what do they represent when people see them in the yards and on the government properties, and it's in the wind? What makes it so special and symbolic?
The pinwheels are just, like you said, it's symbolic, and it's what we use to highlight prevent child abuse, in Child Abuse Prevention Month, and wearing blue. I know blue is also associated with other organizations, but the pinwheels, the blue pinwheels in particular, are letting them know that, you know, this is something that we really need to draw attention to. It's not something that's happening everywhere else except in your own community. It's happening right here in Henry County, and we need to be aware of it. We need to educate ourselves as to what it looks like through the Darkness to Light program. We need to make ourselves better parents, better people, to be able to give our children the best life that they can get, especially with all that's going on in their lives. And they have so much that they're faced with. It's unbelievable, to be honest. I don't know if Robin has anything else in terms of the significance of the pinwheels that she'd like to add, but she can go ahead and do that if, yeah.
Well, you did a great job, Antoinette. Basically, they just represent the fact that all children deserve a safe and healthy childhood. And we want people to remember that and think of that when they see the pinwheels.
Yeah, thank you so much. D'Amico, I'll ask the last question to you before we do a final wrap up. For the person that is listening right now and say, cool, Prevent Child Abuse Henry, I know you all have the t-shirts and pinwheels, but how can someone support your organization right now? What can they do, even if they're in California and saying, hey, they're doing some great work over in Georgia? Is it simply tagging you all or taking a picture of them in blue jeans? Anything to bring awareness to this?
It is, Robin, I'm not really sure. Do we have a hashtag for that? I know, so if you want to support, we have different ways to donate. You can go to our webpage, you can go to our Facebook page. If you shop at Kroger's, we are part of the rewards program. So you can go to Kroger's and do the rewards.com and choose Prevent Child Abuse Henry as your charity. We're also on Amazon Smiles. Under Amazon Smiles, we are listed as Henry County Council on Child Abuse. If you want to tag our page, you can purchase our shirts. You can wear blue. It's Prevent Child Abuse. Tag us. We'd love to see the pictures.
I love it. And Robin, of course, your organization, people probably know this, but it's a nonprofit, right? Talk to us about the setup so people know when they're making donations, it's going to a great cause.
It is. Yes, we are a nonprofit. All your donations are tax deductible. We can send you a receipt. And we were affected by COVID just like everybody else was. We've not been able to do some of the typical fundraisers that we do during the year. So please, please be supportive still of your local nonprofits. If you're able to make a donation, all nonprofits could really use those this year.
Thank you so much for putting that out there because
And Shayna, a lot of nonprofit organizations, as you know, spend some of their money on administrative costs. We don't. Everything goes back into either material for the First Steps program,
Yeah.
Darkness to Light programs. Whoever does the Darkness to Light program, it's totally volunteer.
wow.
We also purchase material for the nurturing program, the program that I'm doing, the family parenting classes.
Yes.
Get material from the fundraisers that we do and whatever contributions that we get. So administrative costs are not covered through any contributions that are made, any donations that are made to
Thank
the
you.
organization.
Yeah. Thank you, Antoinette. for pointing
We
that out.
also want to make sure that our kids are reading. So in those First Steps book, there is a little baby's first book, and we encourage that reading. So we use that money to purchase all of those things. Everything goes back into our program.
I love it. What great information. Thank you again for sharing that. The more information we have, the better off we're going to be. Prevent Child Abuse Henry, such a great organization, worthwhile. Again, I've had the opportunity to participate with your events, and I see firsthand the impact you all are making out there in our communities. Tamika, I'm going to end the round, or start the round rather, with you. One nugget, if you will, quickly to close us out. A parenting tip that may help a novice parent, or a mom who's having her second kid at 35, or a 40-year-old who's having her first child.
It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be unsure and to not know. There is no written handbook. Lord knows I wish there had been one. There is no handbook, and every single one of your children is different. And what you do for the first one, you will not do for the second one. What works for the second one isn't going to work for the third one. It's okay to ask for that help and to be unsure. You'd rather ask and have that assistance than to just not know.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great information. I love that nugget. Ask for help, no matter what stage you're in. Antoinette, best nugget for you. You have adult children, but you've been here. You've been down this road.
There's so many things that come to mind. I guess if I really had to make it short, trust your gut. Trust your gut. It comes to abuse. Taking care of your child, it doesn't necessarily mean the fact that grandmother did it or somebody did it. Trust your gut. And so if you trust your gut and you ask for help, then you're 2 steps ahead of the game. Yeah. Yeah. So I think if what comes to mind, that's probably the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. They always say that little seed that sits in there.
Yeah.
When there's something wrong, or sometimes it'll let you know something is right. So trust that.
A lot of the times, you know your baby better, or you know your child better than anyone else. So trust your gut. Trust your gut. Trust your feelings. Yeah.
So key. Robin, no pressure on you, but we've got some great tips.
I know. You're leaving to laugh.
Best nuggets of parenting from you, and you've spent many years, over 20 years, with this great organization preventing and spotlighting child abuse. You've seen a lot. You're a mom yourself. Help us out.
I am. I'm just going to say, what they said is very important, but also just, you don't have to be perfect, but just, get as much information as you can. Like they said, if you're not sure about something, don't be afraid to ask somebody, ask for help. But also the time goes so quickly. So really enjoy the time you have with your children, make the best of it. And, people are out there to help you. Community's out there to help you. Everybody wants you to be the best parent you can be.
That is.
I'm not trying to get the last word in, but the days are long, but the years are short.
And that's the best way to put it. And any
Yeah.
parent can vouch for that one. And certainly. Thank you so much, ladies, for being with us. We're spotlighting, talking about preventing child abuse in 2021. It's still relevant. Unfortunately, we've had to continue to have this conversation, but the only way we address it, the only way we stomp it out, we abolish it, is by putting truth to it, right? Shining a light straight through it. That's the only way you can address situations. And we're acknowledging there's a problem, there's a societal issue as well. Robin, I want you to close us out on information. I have seen reports nationally that domestic violence has been up since COVID. I am making the conclusion, I haven't necessarily seen this next step, that child abuse would be a part of that, right? It's a part of domestic abuse. If there's a significant other, typically the woman who's being abused in the home, if there are children present, it's hard for me to believe that those children are not experiencing something from that, even if it's the emotional abuse that you painted such a great picture of earlier about traumatic experience. So I would imagine even more so than before, that child abuse should be top of our minds, right?
That is very true. We have seen the numbers go up. I spoke with the director for Department of Family and Children Services the other day, and last year we had 3,388 reports just in Henry County. And keep in mind that children have not been in school like they usually are, or playing sports and that sort of thing. So many reports that we normally would get from the school system and other people have not been given. So I feel like that's actually a low number, even though it's way ahead. The year before was approximately 2,500 reports. So we saw a huge increase, not even counting the ones that we didn't get because of normal people that would be making reports that see children on a regular basis normally.
And that's such a great point that we often forget, right? Majority of the children in this area have been remote learning for a large part of the year, right? And the teachers, I'd imagine, and those guidance counselors are able to spot something. And when you take that away, children are under the supervision of those adults, be it an aunt, whoever. So you're not necessarily getting the objective reporting that would come from a school official. Great point. Great point. Robin, I know we've said it before, but I don't want us to miss it for someone that's watching us on demand months later. Tell us where they can go for more information about the amazing organization, Prevent Child Abuse Henry. Share your website and also your Facebook handle.
Okay, the website again is www.preventchildabusehc.org. They can email me at robin@preventchildabusehc.org. Our Facebook page is Prevent Child Abuse Henry County. We would love people to send pictures in with the hashtag Paint Henry Blue 2021. My phone number, our office number is 770-507-9900. We would love to hear from people about wanting to do Stewards of Children training, wanting to know more about our programs or volunteer, or just get involved in any way that they can.
I love it. And also you're saying open for donations. And obviously we remain objective and neutral here, but Antoinette pointed out that the donations go to the actual training and the functionality of the organization, not necessarily admin. Like we know there are a lot of great organizations that do use for admin, but Antoinette, thank you for pointing that out. And I would imagine, I know you all ladies are so gracious, but there is a need to support your organization, Robin?
Yes, definitely. Our largest fundraiser, the Dancing with the Stars of Henry County, was not able to, we weren't able to do that this year. We're hoping to next year. We're looking at February 12th of 2022. However, that was a huge chunk of our budget for this year. So we can definitely use your help with donations and fundraising.
So any amount, I'm sure, would be welcomed, right? If someone's saying, well, at $5 or $10, but you all, I'm sure, are welcoming that as well.
Yes, ma'am. $5 or $10, any amount they would like. And it's very easy on our website. There's a donate button they can hit, and there will soon be one on our Facebook page also.
I love it. Thank you so much. Child abuse is unfortunate. It's something that's here, but bit by bit, we can each do our part, support organizations, like Prevent Child Abuse Henry, who are getting out to the community, reaching parents where they are, doing home visits before COVID, and still trying to reach out to make sure the education and the training is there. And they're acknowledging parenting can be difficult and challenging, but it can be worthwhile, and it realistically can be done in a healthy manner. So we continue as a society to produce produce amazing, productive citizens that are making positive differences, just like these three amazing women have done. Thank you, Antoinette Paragon Singh. Such a pleasure to have you. The one and only D'Amico Edwards as well. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Robin Jones for Prevent Child Abuse Henry. I'm Shana Thornton for Let's Talk America Radio. Thank you for joining us live. If you're on demand, say hello. We want to hear from you as well. Stay tuned in. Let's Talk America Radio highlights the important issues for real people. Okay, that's the only way we help all of us grow together. For more information, visit ltaradio.com. That's ltaradio.com. Or follow us on the fabulous Facebook, also on Twitter. We're out there on Instagram or even on TikTok. Simply look up LTA Radio. That's LTA Radio, or use our hashtag LTA Radio. We do follow back and we'd love to hear from you. Take care, everyone. Remain safe and let's stomp out child abuse. April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. Thank you, ladies. Amazing job.
Thank you.
Keep sharing.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Thanks
good
for
evening.
watching, everyone.